Hello and welcome back. We're going on to part 2 of Treasure from the Haunted Pagoda by Eric Hare. Now, if any of you didn't see the first part from last Sabbath, it is on the Milwaukee Central website, and I've got it saved onto my website as well, on my channel on YouTube. And this chapter continues where our last one left off in kind of a scary moment. But I want to remind you, what's happening in this book isn't actually scary, even though it's got a title like Haunted Pagoda. And there's 2 reasons for that. Reason number 1, the God we serve is more powerful than any evil spirit, any demon, any person trying to be mean or scary. He's got them all whipped. But also, as we're going to be finding out, often the things that we think are scary really aren't that scary once we know what's really going on. Now, the story takes place about 100 years ago in the country of Burma, or what is modern day called Myanmar. And this took place as SDA missionaries had been setting up in the country and slowly spreading around, trying to tell other people about Jesus and how much he loved them. And they found out there was a whole group of people called the Karen people who had never heard about Jesus. They worshiped evil spirits. They worshiped devils. And so the SDA missionaries had looked for a place to start a mission station. They found a beautiful place on the banks of the Salween River. And the Salween River ran right through Karen territory. And most of the Salween River was crowded with other villages, but this place was not crowded. And the reason was nobody wanted to build there. Do you remember why? Because on both sides of the Salween River at this location, there had been villages that had undergone bad things, and they thought they were cursed by evil spirits. And so they had left the place. And when they had moved away, they had put curses on the place, saying, if anybody tries to live here, they will die. And if anybody tries to find our treasure, they will die. What treasures did they have? Well, they had a couple. They had on one side of the river a big pagoda. A pagoda was like a big religious building, a monument that they had built. And at the bottom, buried deep in the middle, were silver bricks, really, really valuable. On the other side of the river, the village on that side had left a diamond hidden inside the trunk of a living tree. They called it a spirit tree. And those people had also said, if anybody tries to steal the diamond from this spirit tree, they will die. And nobody had ever tried to build there until now the missionaries had established a mission station there. They had a small clinic, a small dormitory, a small mission hut. And now, as Elder Hare and Elder Hamilton, the 2 missionaries at the mission station, were marking off the boundaries of their property, marching through the jungle, they had found the old pagoda, the pagoda that supposedly had been cursed, the pagoda for which this whole book is titled, The Treasure from the Haunted Pagoda. And as they, without any fear in their hearts, climbed up the pagoda and then down the central chamber, down to the bottom, they had looked around and they had said to each other, hey, there might be silver treasure around here. Should we dig for treasure? Yeah, we should dig. And just then they had heard, do you remember? A rumbling, grumbling, roaring sound that got louder and louder and then ended with a thud right at their feet. And that's where chapter 2 begins. Elder Hare and Elder Hamilton looked at each other as best they could, their eyes wide, the hair on the back of their necks standing right up. What could have possibly made that sound? Then Elder Hare remembered he had his small flashlight available, and he rummaged in his pocket and shone it around, and there at their feet was just a big loose brick. A brick that had just come loose as they were climbing down the central chamber and rumbled and tumbled down, thankfully not hitting anybody, and landed at their feet. That was all it was, not evil spirits trying to protect some cursed pagoda and its silver treasure buried inside. They chuckled at each other. And then Elder Hare said, so, should we dig for treasure? And Elder Hamilton said, yes, we should. But we're going to dig for even better treasure than silver bricks. We're here to look for treasure that's even better than a diamond hidden in a spirit tree. Yes, we are, said Elder Hare. And in order to get this treasure, we're going to need to do a little bit more preparation. The first thing we're going to need is to get a better tool. What kind of tool do you think they're going to need if they're looking for treasure? Treasure that's better than silver bricks or diamonds hidden in trees. Well, Elder Hare said the tool they needed was a language. They needed to learn the Karen language. See, Elder Hare had just arrived a couple months before to the country. Elder Hamilton had been there for a while and he knew how to speak Karen, but Elder Hare and his wife, Mrs. Hare, did not know how to speak Karen. So they went back to the capital city of Burma, Rangoon, and they found someone to teach them. And for the next 6 months, they worked on sharpening their tool. Their tool was the Karen language, and it was a hard tool to sharpen. You know why? Because the Karen language is, well, it's pretty complicated. The Karen language has 6 tones for every syllable. What does that mean? Well, for example, in our English language, if I said the word and is a syllable. Or if I said the word button, then button are 2 syllables. Well, in Karen, every syllable has 6 possible tones you might make with it. Now, I don't actually speak Karen, but according to what Elder Hare wrote in his book, here's an example of the different tones that it could be made with just 1 syllable. He said if you took the word, the syllable ler, L-E-R, you could pronounce it in a high tone, ler, and that would mean from. You could pronounce it in a low tone, ler, and that would mean stone. They're not related, are they? Then you could pronounce it in a descending tone, ler. That means maggot. You could also say it in a high short tone, ler. That means all, or you could pronounce it in a low short tone, ler. That means used up. And as if that wasn't enough, you also had the sing-song tone, which I imagine would go something like ler, and that meant warm. You got it? You got those all memorized? There will not be a quiz on this, don't worry. But Elder Hare and Mrs. Hare had lots of quizzes. And even if they were doing well on the quizzes on paper and the quizzes in the classroom, they would still mess up sometimes on the quizzes in real life. For example, one time Elder Hare was telling their teacher, hey, you know what? Next time I come to class, I will play my silver-plated trumpet for you. Now, he said that to the teacher in Karen language. And so he said, I will play my silver-plated trumpet for you. And the word for trumpet was be, B-E. But when he said it, the teacher's eyes got really big and he said, oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that, Mr. Hare. And Elder Hare said, no, I can. I love to play my silver-plated trumpet. I'm very good at playing the trumpet. And the teacher looked at him with wide eyes and said, no, you cannot do that. What do you think you are saying? Then Elder Hare explained it in English that he was trying to say trumpet. And the Karen teacher's eyes got even bigger and he said, you did not say trumpet in Karen. Trumpet in Karen would be like this, be. But you said be, and that means grandma. Yeah, Elder Hare was offering to play his silver-plated grandma. So you can see they had to work really hard to sharpen this tool before they'd be able to go and dig for the treasure that they were really there to find. But finally, after 6 months, they felt confident enough in the progress they had made in learning the language to go back now to Onda. That was the village. That was the area along the Salween River where the clinic was located. Onda meant cluster of palms, and there were a lot of palm trees on one side of the river. And back there now, Elder Hare and Mrs. Hare set to work, working alongside Nurse Gibbs. Nurse Gibbs was a woman who had come there along with Elder Hamilton in order to be able to help the people's medical needs. And some people would come to the clinic. It had been a number of months that the mission station had been open, and slowly people from the surrounding villages were starting to come. But even though they would come, they wouldn't come, well, how would I put it? They wouldn't come with a lot of trust in their hearts. They always looked kind of nervous, as if something might happen to them. And not many people would come. So after a while of trying to reach the people and trying to convince them that they should come and get help at the medical clinic and hopefully start to learn more about God, Elder Hare told Nurse Gibbs, hey, is there any other things that we could do to be able to reach the people? And Nurse Gibbs said, well, I've been thinking we could take one of our small mission boats, one of our launches with a motor, and go along the river and see if we can find some other villages and go visit them at their villages. That's a great idea, said Elder Hare. Let's do that. Well, they started going up and down the river, and when they would go up and down the river, there were some villages close to the water, but whenever their boat would get close, the people in the villages would start to run away, and usually they would call back over their shoulder a word that sounded like dawtaka, dawtaka, as they would run and hide in the jungle. Dawtaka, said Elder Hare to Nurse Gibbs, who knew more Karen language than Elder Hare did. What does that mean? And Nurse Gibbs kind of rolled her eyes and said, dawtaka, it's a word that means kind of like a mix of a ghost and a demon. And they believe that there are these ghost demons that will Well, that they have special power to steal your babies, and then when they steal your baby, they will keep your baby and feed it lots of food. Oh, well, what's wrong with that, said Elder Hare. Just a minute, I'll explain, said Nurse Gibbs. After they feed it food, they feed it lots of food to make it nice and fat, and then they eat it. Oh, said Elder Hare, that's why they run away from us. Well, what else can we do to be able to convince the people that we are not dawtakas? We can't find the treasure we're looking for until we take their fear away. And the clinic did help. And as more people started to come and get treatment for problems and then go back to their villages and tell them, I'm okay, the dawtakas did not eat me, people started to lose some of their fear. The mission station particularly started to become friendly with the closest village across the river. This was Tiger Village. Now, Tiger Village was not the actual name of the village. The actual name of the village was probably much longer and more complicated than Elder Hare could pronounce. But he called it Tiger Village because the first time that they went to Tiger Village to visit, they saw that there were some huge tiger skins drying in the sun along the side of one of the verandas of the huts. And ever since, they called it Tiger Village. The people of Tiger Village became more familiar with them. They had more people coming from Tiger Village to the clinic, getting friendly and realizing that they weren't harming them. And so they wouldn't run away from them screaming, dawtakas, and hiding in the jungle. So after about, 8 to 9 months, Elder Hare said, I think, Mrs. Hare, we should try starting a Sabbath school. We could invite the people from Tiger Village and see if they will come to Sabbath school. And we will play music for them, and we will show them pictures from our picture roll and talk to them about Jesus. And they thought it was a great idea. They went over to Tiger Village, and the next time that they were there visiting and healing people with their medications, they said to them, hey, we are going to have a Sabbath school. Now, they'd never heard of a Sabbath school before, so they explained to them, Sabbath school, it's a meeting, and we will have anybody who wants to come. We will be able to sing songs, and people thought, oh, songs, we like music, that's good. And we'll show you pictures. People were really curious about pictures. They said, if you just come over the next Sabbath, that's going to be on the 7th day of the week. Come on over and we will have Sabbath school. And the people from Tiger Village said, oh, yes, we'll come. Well, when Sabbath morning came, Elder Hare and his wife were all ready for their first Sabbath school in the jungle. They had their mission clinic all cleaned out in the biggest room so that there was place for people to sit. They had a beautiful picture roll hanging on the wall. They had the silver-plated trumpet, not the grandma, but the trumpet, ready to go to play music. They were dressed in their best, and they waited, and nobody came. And after a while, they realized nobody's going to come today. But, things move differently in the jungle. People don't really follow schedules so tightly in the jungle, and they might decide that they just want to, come next week. So they waited and set up the following Sabbath. Okay, here's the next Sabbath. We're ready. And nobody came. That's strange. Well, during that following week, as people would come to the clinic to get help, they would ask people from Tiger Village, didn't you remember we were having a Sabbath school on the 7th day of the week? Oh, yes, we'll come, they said. But, the third Sabbath, how many people came, do you think? Yeah, no people. So they were getting more discouraged, trying to be patient, knowing that it would take time sometimes for people to respond to the message of Jesus. And then they had something really promising happen. The 4th Sabbath, early in the morning, before they were even out of bed, before they had the picture roll hung up in the Sabbath school room, before they had the silver-plated trumpet all ready to go, they heard a voice calling from across the river, Tara! Oh, Tara! Tara! Now, Tara is the Karen word for teacher. And that's what everyone called Elder Hare, Tara. Well, he jumped out of bed. He ran to the veranda of their hut and looked, and there on the other side of the river, 200 people. 200 people, all dressed in their finest outfits. How wonderful. They're here for Sabbath school. Hurry, Mrs. Hare. You get the Sabbath school room ready. Get the trumpet. Get the picture roll. I'll take a canoe. I'll go across and start bringing people over. And so he ran down. He got the canoe, paddled across, and when he arrived to the other shore, he said to them, oh, are you here for Sabbath school? And the people all looked at him and said, what? He said, for Sabbath school. What Sabbath school? The thing that we said we were going to have today, which is the 7th day of the week. No, we're not here for Sabbath school, said one man. Haven't you heard? Don't you know? Didn't anybody tell you? There's a devil dance going on the other side of the river, a few miles past your house. We're all dressed up to go to the devil dance. Well, not exactly the news that Elder Hare was looking for. When he got back to the clinic, he told Mrs. Hare dejectedly, no, they're not here for Sabbath school. They were just crossing the river to go to a devil dance. Oh, what will we do? Mrs. Hare had an idea. Well, if they won't come to Sabbath school, why don't we take Sabbath school to them? Oh yeah, we could do that. We could take our Sabbath school stuff to their village and do it there. And that's what they did. The very next Sabbath, they packed up the picture roll, they packed up the silver-plated grandma, and they trudged along over the river, through the woods, through the jungle. They had to cross 3 fields and then a creek, and they arrived in Tiger Village, and the people were there, and they set up the picture roll, and they healed the people who were having illnesses and wounds and infections and abscesses and rashes. And they told them, hey, we're going to sing for you. And the people were excited. You're going to sing for us? And he pulled out his trumpet, and Elder Hare played the trumpet. The people were very excited. And then they sang a hymn, and the people were very interested. And then they asked the people, do you know what the lyrics of the hymn mean? And the people said, no, we don't know what that means. So they explained to them what the lyrics meant, and they were able to tell them, start telling them the story of Jesus using the lyrics from their hymns and the picture roll that they had. And the people started listening, and the people started getting intrigued. And on the way back home that day, Elder Hare and Mrs. Hare felt like they were floating on air because after almost 2 years of hard work, they had finally held a Sabbath school in the Karen part of Burma for the first time ever. They really felt like God was working, and he was. God was starting to dig up treasure. One of the very first gems that they found in their treasure hunting there by the Salween River was a woman by the name of Naw Kya Tee. Naw Kya Tee did not live in Tiger Village. She actually lived in the next village past Tiger Village, a few miles further, deeper into the jungle, away from the river, and that village was called Kaw Malay. Now, Naw Kya Tee was somewhat the village doctor for Kaw Malay. She had a lot of knowledge of charms and curses and how to talk to the spirits. And she knew a lot about the native medicines and how to use the blood of a chicken to be able to try to heal someone. And she had traveled many distances, even up to 60 miles away at times. And when Naw Kya Tee heard about this Sabbath school that had been taking place in Tiger Village, and she'd heard about these God worshippers who apparently had very strong medicine because they were living at On Da, the place that had the haunted pagoda, the cursed pagoda, she was so curious about it, she decided she was going to go see for herself. But when the other villagers of Kaw Malay found out about this, they weren't so excited about this plan. No, you shouldn't go, they told Naw Kya Tee. You should not go. Why not, said Naw Kya Tee. Because, don't you know, haven't you heard, hasn't anybody ever told you, the God worshippers are dawtakas. And they said it in that way that normally would make someone's hair stand on end and they'd get scared and run into the jungle. But Naw Kya Tee didn't get scared. She looked at them and said, no, they're not dawtakas. Besides, what do you expect to happen? Do you think that dawtakas are going to live there at On Da? The villagers said, yes, only dawtakas can live at On Da because that place is cursed. Nobody else can live there because, well, it's a cursed place. So if you're going to live there, you must be dawtakas, right? Now, Naw Kya Tee didn't fall for that logic. She said, no, I don't believe it. In fact, I don't think these devils are any good for us. We need to find some other people, some other God to worship. Because these devils, they don't help us. Even when we have trouble and we try to worship them by sacrificing, they don't listen to us. The sacrifices don't make any difference. Do you remember other times when we've had that disease going through our bulls and all of our bulls began dying, and then we started sacrificing our chickens to the devils and sacrificing our pigs to the devils, and when we were all done, what happened? We had a bunch of dead bulls and all of our chickens and pigs were dead. The devils didn't do anything to help us. No. I want to find a better God to worship. Oh, and the villagers looked around wide-eyed and said, quiet, Naw Kya Tee. The spirits will hear you. They'll get angry. And if you go over there and you start worshiping their God, the spirits will harm us. They will bring danger and pain to our village, and it will be your fault, Naw Kya Tee. But Naw Kya Tee said, no. Have you forgotten? Don't you know? Hasn't anybody ever told you? We have an ancient song. And that ancient song says that long, long ago, God made the world. The ancient song says that we got lost from God. And the ancient song tells us that someday the white brother will come with the golden book. Now, just a side note here. You might be thinking to yourself, is that just something Naw Kya Tee was making up? No, that actually was some of the ancient songs that have been passed down for generations among the Karen people in Burma. Amazing, isn't it? Well, Naw Kya Tee decided she was going to go, and she took her daughter with her. Now, her daughter's name is hard to pronounce for us who don't speak Karen, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Hla Kin. Hla Kin was 18 years old. She came along with her mother, and they traveled all the way to the village, the mission station at Onda. To get there, they had to go through a long crisscrossing jungle trail. Then they had to go past Tiger Village. Then they had to cross a creek. And then they had to cross 3 fields. Then they got to the river, and they would wave and call till somebody came from the mission station with a boat or a canoe to take them across the river. And after they crossed the river, Hla Kin and Naw Kya Tee didn't want to get too close. They were a little nervous, so they just stood kind of further back from the mission station, and they watched, and they kind of let themselves move behind some bushes to just observe what happens, just in case, just in case these might be dawtakas after all. But they sure didn't act like dawtakas. There were villagers coming out from the clinic, and they looked happy. They didn't look like anybody had been eating them at all. In fact, that one man, he had gone in there earlier, and he had a bad abscess, a big swollen, infected lump on his arm. And now he came out, and there was a nice white bandage around it, and he was smiling. And that other villager had gone in there carrying her baby that had been crying, and now she came out, and she still had her baby, and the baby was sleeping calmly. Thought Naw Kya Tee, I do not think these are dawtakas. And just then, out onto the veranda came one of the white women. This was Nurse Gibbs. And Nurse Gibbs, who could speak the Karen language, was talking to Mrs. Hare and to some of the villagers. And she was saying, I just have so much work to do. It would be wonderful if I could get a helper girl. I need someone who can just stay here and work next to me, and I could train her to help, take care of the babies and change their diapers and get me the medicines. And do you know, Naw Kya Tee didn't hesitate. She stepped out from behind the bushes, dragging Hla Kin by the arm, and she said, "Oh, if you need a helper girl, you can have Hla Kin. She'll stay here with you." What an answer to prayer, huh? Nurse Gibbs said, "Really? Well, thank you. That's wonderful. You may live with us, Hla Kin. Welcome." And Hla Kin did stay there. Naw Kya Tee stuck around a little bit longer that day, and then she made her way back all the way over the river, across 3 fields, across a creek, past Tiger Village, and through the crisscrossing jungle trail, all the way back to her town in Kamale. And the villagers saw her come back without Hla Kin. They said, "What happened? Did the dawtakas eat Hla Kin?" And Naw Kya Tee said, No, she's going to stay there and help them. "Oh, you'll see," said the villagers. "You'll see. They will just fatten up Hla Kin, and then they will eat her. And then the spirits are going to also be angry at you for letting Hla Kin stay there." Well, months went by, and everything seemed to be okay. Hla Kin was doing very well, helping there at the mission station, and Naw Kya Tee was doing very well back in her village. Until one day, Naw Kya Tee got sick. She had a high fever. And of course, you know what the villagers had to say about that when they found out that their own village doctor had gotten sick. That village doctor who had dared to go all the way to the cursed village of Onda, to the mission station where the God worshippers were. "Oh, the devils are angry," said the villagers. "The devils are so angry with you. This is because you let Hla Kin live there. This is because you went to find out about the God worshippers' God." No, said Naw Kya Tee. "It's just a fever. I know it's just a fever. You must send for the Tara. Call for Tara." And finally, she was able to convince one messenger to go, traveling all the way through jungle, over creeks, over fields, and over river, all the way to the mission station. And the messenger arrived very nervous, looking around for dawtakas, looking for signs of eaten children. But no, there was Hla Kin. Hla Kin looked happy. Hla Kin recognized the messenger and said, "Oh, hello." And the messenger said, "I have a message for Tara. Naw Kya Tee is sick, and she wants you to come." Well, Elder Hare couldn't pass up this opportunity. He knew he needed to come. So he told Mrs. Hare, "I will go. I'm going to leave right away. When I go, I'm going to go across the river. I'll have the boatman wait there for me. And then I will travel over the fields, across the creek, past Tiger Village, and then wherever these jungle trails go, where the messenger will lead me, until I get to Kamale. And there I will try to help Naw Kya Tee. Now, if I am late and I don't come back in time, then the boatman will be instructed to come back across the river and wait back here at the mission station overnight, and then he can pick me up in the morning. Because then, don't worry, I know that it will just mean that I've gone to stay in the Kamale village for a night and maybe preach to the people or something. We'll see what happens. So Elder Hare and Mrs. Hare knelt down and prayed that God would protect him and that God would use this as an opportunity to reach more people for Jesus. And then Elder Hare gathered up his supplies and traveled. He went across the river and he instructed the boatmen who had taken him across, please wait here. Right now, let's see. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. I think I should be able to make it back here by 4 p.m. Why don't you wait until 5 p.m. just to be sure? And if I don't come back by 5 p.m., you can go back across to the mission station and wait for me. Okay, very good, said the boatman. And then Elder Hare traveled. Now, I've said it a couple of times already, so you should be able to imagine in your head what he had to cross in order to get to Kamale. He had to walk across 3 large fields. Then he had to cross a creek. Then he had to pass Tiger Village and go through a crisscrossing jungle trail. I've repeated it a few times. There must be a reason I keep saying it. Well, they crossed the 3 fields, and then they crossed the creek. Now, the creek between the river and Tiger Village was not very big. It was just a very small creek meandering through the jungle. But it had a really high bridge, a bridge that had been built up very high across the banks. And the bridge itself was not very fancy. It was really just a log, and the log was about 6 inches wide, and it was about 15 feet long, and you just had to balance very carefully all the way across. Now, if you were too nervous to try balancing, walking, standing across, you could sit down and kind of scoot across it. Well, Elder Hare wasn't too nervous to cross it standing up, even though it was kind of a ways down, but it wasn't too big of a problem. He crossed it, no difficulty, and then they got to Tiger Village and waved as they went past, and the people there recognized Tara, and they waved to him. And then they made their way through the jungle. And this part was really different and new because Elder Hare had not been to Kamale on foot yet. And so he had to follow this messenger who was leading him. And the jungle trails all crisscrossed, one in front of the other and one on top of the other. And he was surely glad he had someone to guide him. They made it there to the village at last. And there in her hut was Naw Kya Tee with a fever. And as Tara came into the room, she said, "Oh, Tara, I'm so glad you've come. Tara, the villagers all say this is the evil spirits. But I know it's just a fever, and I know that you have strong medicine. So now is the chance. Show the villagers that your God's medicine is more powerful than anything else." Oh, what a wonderful opportunity, isn't it? So Elder Hare gave her some medicine for fever. He evaluated her, decided what kind of infection she might have, gave her some medicine to fight the infection. And then he stuck around for a little while. He had some time. It had only taken about 2 hours to get to Kamale from when he had left the boatman at the river. You remember what time he left the boatman at the river? 10 o'clock. So to get to the village 2 hours later, he got there about 12 o'clock, noon. Well, by around 2 p.m., Naw Kya Tee looked as if she was starting to feel a bit better. She was able to sit up, drink some water. Her fever was going down. And Elder Hare decided, well, I think I can leave her now. I will go back home since it seems like everyone is just kind of not interested in listening to me today. I will go back home so I can get back to the river before the boatman goes back across the river for the night. One problem, though. Remember how Elder Hare had made it all the way to Kamale from his mission station? It had been by following a messenger, following somebody who could guide him. Now there was nobody going back towards Onda, so Elder Hare had to ask about, is there anyone who would take me, please? Anyone who would lead me back to Onda? Nobody seemed interested until one man said, I might go with you. Will you give me food at Onda? Kind of a strange question, but Elder Hare said, yes, I'll give you some of my rice. Oh, the guide, this man who was offering to guide him, was actually kind of curious to see if the white man's rice was different than the villagers' rice and the Karen people's rice. So he was curious enough to say, I will lead you. I will lead you. So they started out right around 2 p.m. Started heading back through what first? You remember? Many crisscrossing jungle trails, right? And Elder Hare was glad he had somebody to guide him because it was so confusing. Not just because of the crisscrossing jungle trails, but also because it was starting to get dark. Why dark so early in the day? Oh, there were big, heavy black clouds blowing across the sky. It looked like it might start to rain. Oh, yep. It started to drizzle a bit, and then it started to rain a little bit harder. Oh, well, it wouldn't be the first time that Elder Hare had been stuck outside in a rainstorm when he was walking through the jungle. Not a problem. He kept following his guide. But he would check his watch occasionally, and by the time they were arriving to Tiger Village, It was already 3:30. Now, he had told the boatman he hoped to be back by 4 and to please wait for him until 5. So he still had an hour and a half to make it to the river. And to get to the river, what was he going to need to cross still? The creek with the log bridge. And how many fields? 3 fields. Well, no problem. We'll continue right on, said Elder Hare. And the guide picked a trail leading out of Tiger Village, and they made their way. They got across the creek. The log was now kind of wet, and the creek was flowing a little bit faster. Elder Hare decided he would sit down on the log and scoot across rather than trying to walk across it and potentially slip and fall. But he made it across, no problem. And then after walking through the jungle a bit, the trees got a little sparse and thinned out as they got into the first field. Ah, good, thought Elder Hare. 1 field now, then 2 more after that, and then it will be to the river. So they crossed that first field. They went back to the jungle and crossed soon a second field. And then they went through some more jungle and then a third field. We're almost there, said Tara to the guide. We're almost there, and soon I will be giving you some of my rice. Oh, good, oh, good. But then as they walked through the jungle a bit more and the trees started to thin out, there wasn't a river. There was another field. Thought Elder Hare. I've been through this path a few times. I was pretty sure it's 3 fields between the river and the creek in Tiger Village. Maybe it's, maybe I just got a little confused. This man is guiding me. He must know. I'll just keep following him. So they walked across this 4th field, then got back into jungle trail again. And then pretty soon, Elder Hare looked at his watch, and it was getting to be almost 5 o'clock. And oh, good. The trees were starting to thin out. Certainly there was going to be the Salween River, and then they would get on the boat and cross across, and the rain was getting heavier. It certainly would be nice to get out of these wet clothes and dry off and eat some nice rice. And no, it wasn't a river waiting for them at all. It was another field. 1, 2, 3 fields, and then there was that 4th one that I didn't expect, and now the 5th field. This can't be right. Excuse me, said Elder Hare to the man guiding him. I thought for sure it would only be 3 fields, and now we crossed 4, and here's the 5th one. Are you certain? And the guy looked at him and said, I think so. And Elder Hare said, just out of curiosity, how long has it been since the last time you traveled from Kamale all the way to the Salween River? Oh, thought the guide, about 20 years. Yeah, his maps might need updating. Elder Hare wasn't feeling very confident anymore, and the guide wasn't starting to feel confident either. As they walked across the field, the rain was turning heavier and heavier. It was more of a jungle downpour than just a rainfall now. And now the clouds were so thick and the sun had gone down enough that it was becoming very, very dark, very, very black. And Elder Hare thought to himself, no, we're lost. We can't just continue walking blindly like this. We need to go back. Hey, he said to the guide, let's turn around. Let's go back. We're going to try to make it back to Tiger Village. And then we can try to find our way from there. Or maybe we'll stay at Tiger Village overnight. Okay, said the guide. And the guide was obviously nervous and worried too. They turned around and started making their way back. And as they made their way out of the 5th field and back into the jungle, Elder Hare was praying. Oh, please, Lord, we need to find our way back. Please show us how to get there. They made their way to the 4th field and made their way across the 4th field. And the 4th field had gotten pretty muddy by this time. It was hard walking. Water was sloshing over the tops of Elder Hare's boots. And then they made their way back into the jungle. 3 fields to go. Oh, dear God, please protect us. Won't you send an angel to guide us? They made their way into field number 3, then field number 2. As they were walking through the jungle between fields 2 and field 1, there was something up ahead. What was that? Is that a tiger? Thought Elder Hare. You know what that is? They are called Tiger Village for a reason. There must be tigers in the area. Oh, what is that? He stopped for a moment. And then as he inched a little bit closer, oh, no, it wasn't a tiger at all. Oh, you guys thought it was going to be a cliffhanger right there, didn't you? You thought I was going to leave you hanging. No, it was an old tree stump. Oh, okay, thank you, God. It's not a tiger. They kept on going. They got past field number 1. And then as they made their way back into the jungle, the guide stopped walking. He froze. He turned and looked over his shoulder at Elder Hare. He signaled like that, and Elder Hare came up and said, what? Shh, said the guide. Shh, don't you hear it? Hear what? Don't you hear the sound? Elder Hare listened. He cupped his hand behind his ear. You know, you can hear better if you do that. He listened, and sure enough, up ahead, not too far away, it sounded like a roaring sound. Like a roaring Just a constant loud roaring. What could that be? And the guide said, I think it's the evil spirits. I think the evil spirits are angry at us and they're coming for us. It's the demons. What are we going to do? Now, Elder Hare wasn't worried about evil spirits. Elder Hare knew that the God that he served was stronger than any evil spirits, any demons, anything that might be trying to scare someone or harm someone. But Elder Hare was kind of nervous about tigers. And with that much roaring, well, that didn't sound like just one tiger. That sounded like a whole army of them. Could it be? If you want to find out what it is, you have to tune in next Sabbath and listen to part 3. Yeah, I did have a cliffhanger coming for you. Sooner or later, I just can't avoid them. But if you need something else to listen to in the meantime, some other things to watch, feel free to look around the rest of my channel. I've got a bunch of skits and children's stories and mission stories on there. I'd love for you to watch them and enjoy. All right. God bless. We'll see you guys next Sabbath. Bye.